Dior stuns the world. Jimin and Lewis Hamilton unveiled as the twin pillars of global fashion. Is this the boldest move in luxury branding history? In an astonishing act of cultural orchestration that has set social media and fashion circuits ablaze, Dior has taken the luxury industry by storm by aligning two of the most globally magnetic figures in their respective fields, BTS's Jimin and Formula One legend Lewis Hamilton. In a move as strategic as it is shocking, the French fashion powerhouse has not merely appointed two brand ambassadors. It has engineered a cultural collision, a visual symphony of speed and serenity, performance and poise, grit and grace. The question reverberating across industries now is simple. Has Dior just changed the future of fashion storytelling forever? This isn't a traditional celebrity endorsement. It's a visual paradigm shift. The imagery is hauntingly calculated. Hamilton, dressed in monochrome futurism and sleek silhouettes, stands in stark contrast and yet sublime harmony, with Jimin's ethereal elegance, captured in fluid cuts and balletic tension. They are not merely endorsing a product, they are personifying an ethos, a new identity for Dior, a redefinition of modern masculinity. And behind this dramatic reveal lies a string of cues, all quietly dropped, meticulously timed, and emotionally loaded. At first glance, it seemed like coincidence. Lewis Hamilton's streetwear-inspired Dior capsule launched to critical acclaim in early 2025, infused with structural motorsport aesthetics and an air of tailored rebellion. Meanwhile, Jimin, despite being on military hiatus since December 2023, continued to be the face, soul, and surge of Dior's dominance in the Asian luxury market. Notably, 2024 marked a 15% sales increase in the Asia-Pacific region, widely attributed to Jimin's lingering brand equity. Even in silence, his image echoed louder than most, but it was the homepage update that confirmed the rumors. Dior's global site, without ceremony, began alternating between visual spreads of Hamilton and Jimin, without context, without separation. The message was subliminal but unmistakable. These two men, these two titans of their respective industries, are no longer being marketed as individual ambassadors. They are a dual vision. Fashion commentators were quick to dissect the implications. Why now? Why these two? And more importantly, what does it mean when Dior, a brand historically cautious with shared campaigns, merges two vastly different cultural icons under one visual umbrella? The reaction was instantaneous and explosive. One viral thread on social platform X read, "He commands the track. He dances through time. Dior just made history's most elegant collision." Another reads simply, "Speed meets grace. We are not ready." The term speed and grace is now being unofficially used to describe the unannounced but rapidly solidifying brand identity Dior has constructed around the two figures. It is more than a phrase, it has become a movement. This wasn't simply about luxury fashion anymore. It became a narrative about emotional alignment. Jimin's serene vulnerability, meticulously expressed in his past Dior campaigns, where he appeared almost untouchable in silk and shadow, had already created a global image of elevated calm. Juxtapose that with Hamilton's fierce presence, his commanding stillness in the middle of chaos, his sharp lines and unbreakable stares, and what Dior has sculpted is a vision of masculinity that is not about dominance, but about duality. Hamilton's rise in the fashion world, once considered experimental, has now become an undisputed force. His May 2025 Met Gala appearance, in a custom Dior ensemble that shimmered with reflective symmetry and aerospace-inspired motifs, drew comparisons to Jimin's 2023 Dior photo shoot, where metallic textures and celestial lighting made him appear unearthly. Critics noted the eerie similarity in design language. Was it coincidence? Or was Dior already paving the path? More clues emerged through Instagram. Hamilton's Paris visit in mid-2025 included a discreet photo taken at Dior's flagship store, where he wore an oversized minimalist jacket. Fans with microscopic attention noted the presence of a Korean flag stitched inside the inner sleeve. A subtle gesture, possibly unintentional, but in the current climate of speculation, it sent fans into frenzy. Was it a nod to Jimin? Was it a preview of a shared campaign? Dior gave no answer. They didn't need to. The silence only deepened the mythos. The emotional gravity of this cultural pairing cannot be understated. In the West, Hamilton is not just an athlete. He's an activist, an entrepreneur, a symbol of resilience in a sport that rarely makes space for vulnerability. In the East, Jimin is not just a singer. He's a generational icon whose blend of empathy and excellence has become a spiritual template for millions. Together, they transcend their industries. They define emotional experience through visibility. Luxury market analysts were quick to highlight the strategy. Pairing a Black British athlete and a South Korean pop star is more than an inclusive gesture. It's a seismic recalibration of luxury branding. It disrupts traditional definitions of influence, abandoning Eurocentric icons in favor of hybrid narratives.
And it works.
LVMH's Q2 2025 profits spiked by 20%, with Dior attributed as the central driver, its ambassador strategy cited as visionary in execution, revolutionary in effect. Internally, the whispers have begun. Insiders across Seoul, Paris, and Milan are hinting at something more substantial in development. Rumors of a shared campaign have evolved into projections of a co-designed capsule collection, potentially launching in tandem with Jimin's post-military comeback in early 2026. Unconfirmed but widely circulated leaks suggest that both Hamilton and Jimin have been consulted on creative direction, Hamilton reportedly emphasizing sustainable materials, while Jimin has expressed interest in deconstructed formal wear with symbolic embroidery. Fashion forecasting experts now speculate that Paris Fashion Week Spring, Summer 2026 may become the stage for Dior's most ambitious campaign ever. Not just a reveal, but a cultural convergence. If Hamilton and Jimin appear side by side, even briefly, it would mark not just a branding apex for Dior, but perhaps the single most culturally loaded visual in recent fashion history. The digital realm is already bracing for impact. Fan communities across South Korea, Europe, and the Americas have begun dissecting every frame, every color palette, every rumored behind-the-scenes sighting. One particularly viral post detailed the angular design of Jimin's 2023 lapel, laid against the reflective cuts of Hamilton's 2025 gala jacket. The conclusion: they may not be in the same photo, but they're already part of the same visual vocabulary. Luxury Insight Asia revealed staggering figures. Jimin generated over $17 million in earned media value for Dior in a single quarter during 2023. And even during his absence, Dior's Asian market share did not falter, a rarity for brands so tightly linked to individual stars. This is what makes the Jimin-Hamilton axis so potent. It's not momentary hype, it's structural impact. For Dior, the dual representation is no longer just symbolic. It's strategic. Jimin brings with him an audience rooted in devotion, cultural pride, and aesthetic discipline. Hamilton offers a Western demographic attuned to activism, innovation, and defiance of norms. Together, they offer Dior the full cultural spectrum, from introspection to spectacle. What's unfolding isn't just branding, it's choreography. Every new post from Hamilton, every whisper about Jimin's return, is absorbed into a growing canon of what fans and critics alike are calling a new mythology of luxury. It's no longer just about who wears the clothes. It's about who defines the narrative. For now, the campaign remains unofficial. The photos have not dropped. The joint appearance has not occurred. But in the silence, there's tension, a kind of global breath-holding, as if the world is waiting for something seismic to materialize. The potential energy Dior has built by aligning these two icons, without ever placing them in the same frame, is, in itself, a masterstroke, and perhaps that's the real campaign. Not the clothes, not the posts, but the anticipation. the storytelling between the silences, the space between grace and speed. Because if Dior does unveil this duo together, it will no longer be a brand. It will be a belief system. And at its heart stand two men from different worlds, united not by origin, but by excellence. Jimin, Hamilton, Dior. What happens next might just redefine everything ChatGPT said. The countdown has already begun. As Jimin's military discharge approaches and Hamilton continues to redefine fashion masculinity with each public appearance, the stakes rise exponentially. Insiders speculate that Dior's silence is deliberate, building a crescendo toward a global reveal that could dismantle traditional campaign playbooks. The potential first joint visual, if executed, would be more than a photo shoot. It would be a cultural detonation. Two titans from different continents, aligned in vision and craft, could shift fashion from seasonal spectacle to emotional legacy. Behind every stitch, pose, and gesture lies intention. Dior is not merely dressing icons, it's orchestrating identity. The brand is no longer playing within the limits of style, it's composing a narrative of modern myth. And if that myth materializes in 2026, with Jimin and Hamilton side by side, it won't just mark Dior's greatest moment. It will be fashion history, etched not in fabric, but in memory. Every frame will be dissected, every thread analyzed, and every glance between them, if it happens, will become legend. This is no longer about luxury, it's about legacy. Dior is poised to not only lead the industry, but to reshape it entirely through a single, unforgettable moment. Jimin and Lewis Hamilton, Dior's alleged cultural super campaign, masterstroke or manufactured illusion. In an era where perception often supersedes truth, where visual impact is weaponized more powerfully than printed facts, the convergence of two global powerhouses, Park Jimin of BTS and Formula One's Lewis Hamilton, under Dior's luxury branding has ignited an international reaction that blurs the line between cultural reality and high-concept illusion. The campaign, though officially unannounced and void of any formal confirmation, has captured the attention of millions. But amid the fervor and speculation, an essential question must now be raised. Is this phenomenon real? Or is it the result of carefully orchestrated media manipulation? As spectators, we are faced with an extraordinary sequence of events. Dior's homepage subtly rotating visuals between Hamilton and Jimin, fan-generated theories gaining unprecedented traction across platforms such as TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, and YouTube, and speculative visual comparisons between the two icons, all present as compelling narrative threads. Yet none of them constitute verified evidence. In the absence of a formal statement from Dior, can this be treated as fact? Or are we merely participating in a digital theater of hope, hype, and hypothetical storytelling? Let us examine the elements one by one. Lewis Hamilton's ascent into fashion prominence has been documented through credible media and public appearances. His collaboration with Dior, reflected in his minimalist capsule collection and high-profile Met Gala showcase, is not in dispute. Equally, Jimin's long-standing influence on Dior's Asian market is measurable through quantifiable metrics, including confirmed ambassadorial status and documented sales increases. However, the intersection of these two figures, Hamilton and Jimin, not as parallel representatives, but as a shared symbol under Dior's visual doctrine, remains unsubstantiated. This critical distinction cannot be overstated. Where, then, does the narrative derive its strength? From images devoid of context. From visual cues interpreted through the lens of fandom. From patterns perceived by communities actively seeking connections. It is vital to ask, are we interpreting evidence, or are we constructing meaning from ambiguity? Consider this. A Korean flag subtly stitched inside the sleeve of a jacket worn by Hamilton, an alleged nod to Jimin. But is it a nod, or simply a coincidental design? Fashion has long incorporated multicultural elements. To declare intentional symbolism from a single motif, without direct attribution, is to conflate correlation with causation. Similarly, the argument that Hamilton's Met Gala look mirrors Jimin's 2023 Dior editorial is aesthetically compelling, but unconfirmed. Fashion, particularly at the level Dior operates, is cyclical, derivative, and often explores recurring themes of futurism, texture, and abstraction. Should similarity in silhouettes be treated as shared campaign strategy, or are we simply projecting narratives onto garments? These questions are not meant to undermine the emotional significance felt by fans. The longing for cultural convergence, the symbolic unification of global excellence, the desire for representation. All of these are powerful motivators. However, the role of responsible media is not to validate emotional responses as empirical truths. Rather, it is to dissect, analyze, and most importantly, verify. If we look closely at the structure of this phenomenon, it becomes evident that the majority of the discourse has been fueled by user-generated content and platform-specific speculation. Viral tweets, fan cams, photo comparisons, and speculative commentary dominate the narrative landscape. But what portion of this is grounded in primary sources? What statements have Dior, LVMH, or the individuals involved made publicly that directly acknowledge a unified campaign? The answer, to date, is none. We must ask ourselves, why is this silence being interpreted as confirmation? Is the absence of denial a strategic cue, or merely a vacuum that social media fills with conjecture? In a digital ecosystem that rewards engagement over accuracy, the distinction between suggestion and certainty is often lost. This is precisely why skepticism is not cynicism. It is a necessary defense against manipulation, intentional or not. Could this entire media frenzy be a test run, a social experiment in brand virality? Has Dior allowed the narrative to snowball organically to measure engagement without investing in official media spend? If true, it would represent a new and ethically ambiguous frontier in fashion marketing. To what extent should brands be held accountable for public perception when they have not issued misleading statements, but have knowingly capitalized on ambiguous imagery? Furthermore, are we, the audience, complicit in amplifying a narrative without demanding substantiation? We invite you to reflect deeply on these questions. Are we witnessing an authentic cultural event? Or are we being seduced by a fantasy of connection? Do Jimin and Hamilton truly share a collaborative vision with Dior? Or is this a digital mirage, built on high-resolution images and low-resolution facts? The gravity of this reflection extends beyond Dior. In an age where celebrity partnerships hold immense socioeconomic value, the boundary between genuine representation and symbolic tokenism becomes dangerously thin. Is Dior truly redefining masculinity and cultural representation, or are they simply leveraging parallel icons to simulate depth? If the latter is true, what are the ethical implications of constructing identity-based marketing without confirmation, consent, or clarity? Can a brand remain silent while its audience builds a mythology on its behalf? The modern consumer must evolve. In this age of hyperconnectivity, we cannot afford passive consumption. We must interrogate the source, motive, and mechanism behind every media artifact. Not all campaigns are campaigns. Not all pairings are partnerships. Not all narratives are narratives of truth. To our readers, what is it you believe you are seeing? Do you believe Hamilton and Jimin are collaborators, or has the idea of such a collaboration simply become too powerful, too emotionally satisfying to be questioned? It is critical to ask, who benefits from your belief? Is it the artists? Is it the brand? Or is it the social platforms that monetize your engagement with speculative content? Let us confront an uncomfortable but necessary hypothesis. What if the entire phenomenon of speed and grace is a digital construct? A phantom brand moment authored not by Dior, but by the fervor of interconnected global fandoms and the speculative nature of modern media culture. This does not diminish the cultural power of such a narrative. On the contrary, it reveals a new dimension of collective authorship, but it demands transparency. Without confirmation, without structure, The narrative remains a house of cards, majestic but fragile. And if it collapses, what accountability exists? Therefore, we urge all readers, fans, and consumers of media to adopt a new posture, not of disbelief, but of disciplined curiosity. Celebrate the possibility, but challenge the source. Embrace the imagery, but question the intent. Recognize the emotional resonance, but anchor your interpretation in confirmed data. The responsibility of meaning lies not only with the creators, but also with the interpreters. In a media landscape built on virality, you are not merely an observer. You are a co-author. What you share, believe, and echo shapes the perceived truth. So we ask again, in absolute seriousness, do you believe this campaign is real? Or have you been subtly persuaded by the architecture of media momentum? And if tomorrow Dior releases a joint campaign, will it be a fulfillment of organic storytelling? Or merely a reaction to online speculation that became too large to ignore? The difference is not trivial. It defines the very mechanics of truth in our time, until clear confirmation emerges through official campaigns, credible interviews, or transparent brand disclosures. We must treat this phenomenon as what it currently is, an open question. A case study in the power of image, the seduction of implication, and the limits of unverified information remain critical. Stay vigilant. Resist the comfort of believing something just because it feels perfect. Even beauty, especially beauty, can be a mask. What you choose to believe now may determine what kind of media ecosystem we all inhabit tomorrow. And so the final question remains, one only you, the reader, can answer. Is this history in the making? Or is it the most elegant illusion luxury has ever created? Some of the world's most powerful stories are not born from facts, but from longing. The tale of Dior, Jimin, and Lewis Hamilton may very well be one of the most beautiful narratives never formally declared, yet deeply felt. Or perhaps it is being delicately threaded behind closed doors, quietly waiting for the perfect moment to transform illusion into iconography. In the eye of this storm lies a paradox, an explosive global conversation built on silence. There are no joint photo shoots, no press conferences, no official Dior campaign announcements that bind Jimin and Hamilton together. And yet, the world is watching more intently than ever. Fan edits are being consumed like scripture. Outfit analyses are being treated as evidence. Emotional investment has begun to eclipse the need for proof. So we must ask, are we witnessing a revolution in branding? Or are we lost inside the world's most exquisite digital fever dream? The power of the what if at the heart of this phenomenon is a simple question that refuses to die. What if it's true? What if Dior is indeed orchestrating a long-form cultural narrative, carefully teasing out visual breadcrumbs to generate a slow, simmering global obsession? What if the silence is not a gap, but a strategy? This what if holds power. It captivates the imagination. It lingers longer than certainty. And Dior, whether intentionally or by happy accident, has allowed this speculative tension to flourish. Let's not underestimate the psychological brilliance of this. Brands usually aim for instant gratification, bold drops, viral rollouts, press blasts. But the slow burn created by the absence of confirmation has led to something much deeper than a trend. It has created a myth, modern myth-making in real time in mythology. The most compelling figures are not those who speak, but those who appear and then vanish. Dior has, perhaps unintentionally, tapped into the same archetype. Jimin and Hamilton have become modern-day demigods of digital culture, neither confirming nor denying, but continuously inspiring. Their perceived pairing represents more than fashion. It's a projection of global unity, racial harmony, and the evolution of masculinity. And in a world desperately craving symbols of hope, healing, and inclusivity, this myth becomes irresistible. But here lies the ethical fault line, because myth, when consumed as truth, becomes a slippery slope. And branding, when cloaked in emotional projection, becomes a powerful, but potentially manipulative, tool. Dior's silence, tactical or irresponsible. As the speculation builds, Dior's refusal to comment begins to take on weight. Is this brilliant minimalism? A way to allow the audience to co-author the story, thereby increasing emotional ownership? Or is it a form of passive opportunism, capitalizing on unpaid labor from fandoms? Without accountability, luxury brands have always relied on exclusivity and ambiguity. But in an age of radical transparency, how long can that approach last before it begins to backfire? There's also a growing risk: disillusionment. If Dior never confirms the campaign, or if the campaign turns out to be far less integrated than fans hoped, the backlash may not be quiet. Emotional investments carry expectations, and unfulfilled expectations can breed cynicism, especially in a digital landscape where audiences feel empowered, informed, and entitled to the narratives they help construct. The blurred line between influence and illusion, what we are seeing, is not just a fashion moment. It's a media experiment on a global scale. Two separate but complementary stars, Jimin and Hamilton, are being read as a duo, their styles seen as echoes, their timelines treated as coordinated, their silence interpreted as signal. This is the cultural equivalent of pareidolia, where the mind sees patterns that aren't necessarily there. But here's the twist. Even if it's an illusion, it's working. Search volume for Dior has spiked. Articles are being written. Videos are being analyzed. Hashtags like #SpeedandGrace have begun circulating unofficially, building brand equity without a single cent of advertising. Dior's cultural currency is skyrocketing. On the back of implication alone, NO brand briefing. No press junket, just vibes, and they're selling out. Emotional branding at its peak. This moment underscores a major shift in how luxury is defined. It's no longer about what you wear, it's about what you feel when you see it. Hamilton represents resilience, defiance, and futurism. Jimin symbolizes elegance, empathy, and emotional depth. Together, real or imagined, they offer a spectrum of identity that feels both grounded and aspirational. The brilliance of this emotional branding is that it transcends the traditional demographics. It speaks to Gen Z's need for authenticity, millennials' nostalgia for cultural moments, boomers' curiosity about modern icons. It's not just luxury for the wealthy, it's luxury for the emotionally invested, and emotional investment in today's economy is more valuable than attention. Are we creating the campaign ourselves? One of the most radical ideas this moment reveals is this. Perhaps the campaign already exists, not in Dior's offices, but in our own collective minds. Social media has become a participatory stage, not a passive audience. Fans, stylists, cultural critics, even casual observers are building the narrative brick by brick. We are reading into lighting choices. We are zooming into sleeves. We are reconstructing a campaign from digital dust and believing in it with religious intensity. Did I end this sense? The line between consumer and creator has disappeared. The Jimin Hamilton Dior phenomenon is not being delivered to us. It's being co-authored with us. But what happens when a co-authored myth goes unacknowledged? What does it mean when a brand reaps the rewards of our storytelling labor, but offers no clarification, no compensation, no closure? This is the modern media conundrum. The more we build, the less we know who's in control. The ethics of unspoken collaboration. Let's return to the notion of responsibility. Dior, like any global brand, has immense
Power.
and with power comes ethical responsibility. If the brand is not pursuing a joint campaign between Jimin and Hamilton, does it bear any duty to clarify that? Knowing full well the level of global speculation surrounding the matter,